Jake Morrison looked out the window of the transport ship as it moved toward the big space station. His hands were shaking a little. This was his first real job with the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, and he did not want to mess it up. The space station was huge. It floated near a planet called Nexus Prime. Ships from many different worlds came and went from the station. Jake had never seen so many different types of spacecraft before. Some looked like metal birds. Others were round like balls. A few had shapes he could not even describe. "First time off Earth?" asked the pilot, a friendly woman named Captain Lisa Park. "Yes," Jake said. "I studied about other species for years, but seeing it all in person is different." Captain Park smiled. "You will do fine. Humans are still new to all this, but most species like us, they think we are interesting." Jake hoped she was right. Humans had only met other species 3 years ago. Before that, Earth thought it was alone in the universe. Now Jake was going to work with aliens every day. The idea was both exciting and scary. The transport ship docked at the station. Jake picked up his bag and walked through the airlock. The first thing he noticed was how big everything was. The hallways were tall enough for creatures much larger than humans. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal that changed colors as he walked past. A voice spoke from hidden speakers. "Jake Morrison, please report to Diplomatic Section 7. Jake followed the signs through the station. He passed creatures he had only seen in pictures before. There were the Vorthon, who looked like walking trees with too many arms. The Zephyrians floated through the air on wings that sparkled like glass, but most of the creatures he saw were Catherians. The Catherians were the most powerful species in the galaxy. They were tall and thin, about 7 feet high. Their skin looked like it was made of crystal that changed colors. Jake had learned that the colors showed what level they were in their society. Blue meant high rank, green was middle rank, red was low rank. Jake found Diplomatic Section 7 and walked inside. The room was very clean and organized. Every paper was in the right place. Every screen showed the right information. Behind a desk sat a Catherian with green crystal skin. "You must be Jake Morrison," she said. Her voice was calm and had no emotion in it. "I am Zira Viltheros. I will be your liaison during your time here." Jake walked over to her desk. "Nice to meet you, Zira. I am looking forward to working with you." Zira looked at him for a moment. Her crystal skin flickered slightly. "You may call me Administrator Zira Viltheros. Please sit down so we can begin your briefing." Jake sat in the chair across from her desk. He looked around the room again. Everything was perfect. The papers were stacked exactly right. The data tablets were lined up perfectly. Even the pens were placed at the same angle. "Wow," Jake said without thinking. "You have done incredible work setting all this up. The attention to detail is remarkable. You must have put a lot of thought into making everyone comfortable." Zira stopped moving completely. Her crystal skin began to change colors rapidly. It went from green to blue to purple to colors Jake had never seen before. She stared at him with wide eyes and did not move for 30 seconds. Jake counted the time in his head, wondering what he had done wrong. Finally, Zira spoke again. Her voice was not as steady as before. "I thank you for your observation. Let us proceed with the briefing." She turned to her computer screen, but Jake noticed her hands were shaking slightly. He had clearly said something wrong, but he did not understand what. He had only tried to be nice and show appreciation for her hard work. Zira began to explain the station rules and the diplomatic protocols. She talked about which areas humans were allowed to visit and which ones were off limits. She explained how to request meetings with other species and how to file reports. Her voice became steady again, but Jake noticed she kept glancing at him when she thought he was not looking. "The Catherian government values order and efficiency above all things," Zira explained. "Our society has existed for over 10,000 years without major conflict. This is because everyone knows their place and follows the proper procedures." Jake nodded, but he was still thinking about her strange reaction to his compliment. On Earth, people said nice things to each other all the time. It was normal to thank someone for good work or to say they had done a good job. Why had it affected Zira so much? "Do you have any questions about the protocols?" Zira asked. "Just one," Jake said carefully. "Did I say something wrong earlier?" "I did not mean to offend you." Zira's skin flickered again, but just for a moment. "You did not offend me. Your words were unexpected. We should focus on your duties now." She handed him a data tablet with his schedule. "Tomorrow you will observe meetings between 3 different species. You will take notes and write a report about what you learn. This will help Earth understand how galactic diplomacy works. Jake looked at the schedule. It was very detailed and well organized. Without thinking, he said, "This looks great. You have really thought through everything I will need to know." Again, Zira went completely still. This time the color changes in her skin were even stronger. She stared at him for a long moment, and Jake saw something in her eyes he had not seen before. It was not anger or fear. It was more like confusion and wonder, as if he had shown her something she had never seen before. "I must return to my other duties now," Zira said quickly. She stood up from her desk. "Please review your materials and be ready for tomorrow's meetings." Jake stood up too. "Thank you for all your help, Zira. I really appreciate how thorough you have been." Zira stopped walking toward the door. She turned back to look at him, and her crystal skin went through another series of color changes. For just a moment, Jake thought he saw her skin turn a soft gold color that was actually quite beautiful. "I will see you tomorrow, Jake Morrison," she said quietly, and then she left the room. Jake sat back down and looked at the data tablet she had given him. Everything on it was perfect. The information was clear and easy to understand. The schedule made sense. Someone had spent a lot of time making sure he would have everything he needed. He still did not understand why saying nice things seemed to upset Zira so much. But he had a feeling that working with the Catherians was going to be more complicated than anyone had told him. Tomorrow, he would start learning about galactic diplomacy. Tonight, he just hoped he could figure out how to work with his liaison without making her uncomfortable every time he tried to be polite. As Jake left the diplomatic section and headed to his quarters, he did not notice that Zira was watching him from down the hallway. Her crystal skin was still flickering with colors, and she had a very confused look on her face. 3 weeks had passed since Jake started working at the diplomatic station. Every day, he learned something new about the galaxy and the many species that lived in it. But the thing that interested him most was Zira and her strange reactions to his words. Jake had tried to be more careful about what he said, but it was hard. On Earth, people always told each other when they did good work. It felt wrong to stay quiet when someone helped him or did something well. That morning, Jake was in his office when he heard angry voices from the hallway. He looked out and saw 3 different alien species arguing about meeting room schedules. A Vorthan was waving his tree-like arms. A Zephyrian was flying in circles, her glass wings making sharp sounds. A large rock-like creature called a Borlian was stomping his feet and making the floor shake. "This is impossible," the Vorthan said. "We cannot all meet at the same time." "The schedule is wrong," said the Zephyrian. "Someone has made a terrible mistake." Jake watched as Zira walked up to the group. She looked at her data tablet and then spoke in her calm voice. "If I may suggest a solution," she said. "The Vorthan delegation needs the large meeting room because of their size. The Zephyrian group needs the room with high ceilings for their flying. The Borlian representatives need the room with strong floors." She touched her tablet a few times. "I can give you the large room from 9 to 11, she said to the Vorthan. "The high ceiling room from 11 to 1 for the Zephyrians, and the reinforced room from 1 to 3 for the Borlians. This way you can all meet today and the rooms will be ready for your specific needs." The 3 species looked at each other and then at Zira. "This could work," said the Vorthan. "But can it be arranged so quickly?" "I have already sent the changes to the maintenance staff and the food service," Zira said. "They will have everything ready in 30 minutes. The aliens thanked her and walked away happy with the solution. Jake had watched the whole thing and he was amazed. Zira had taken an impossible problem and fixed it in just a few minutes. She had thought about what each species needed and found a way to make everyone happy. When Zira walked past his office, Jake stepped into the hallway. "That was brilliant problem solving," he said. "You really understood what each group needed and found a perfect solution." Zira stopped walking immediately. Her crystal skin began to change colors again, going from green to blue to purple and then to colors Jake was starting to recognize. She stood very still and stared at him. Her breathing seemed to get faster. I was just doing my job," she said quietly. "Maybe," Jake said. "But not everyone could have solved that problem so well. That took real skill and understanding." Zira's skin turned a soft gold color that Jake had seen a few times before. She looked confused and maybe a little scared. "I should get back to my duties," she said. But she did not move right away. She kept looking at Jake as if she was trying to understand something very difficult. After she left, Jake went back to his office. but he kept thinking about what had happened. He decided to learn more about Catherian culture. Maybe if he understood their society better, he would know why his words affected Zira so much. Jake spent his lunchtime in the station's library. He found books and files about Catherian history and culture. What he learned surprised him. The Catherians had not always been the way they were now. Long ago, they had been more like humans. They had emotions and individual personalities, but their planet had been damaged by wars between different groups. About 10,000 years ago, the Catherians decided that emotions and individual thinking caused problems. They created a new society based on castes. Everyone was born into a level, and they stayed at that level their whole life. People in lower castes never spoke unless someone from a higher caste asked them a question. People in higher castes gave orders and everyone else followed them. The most interesting thing Jake learned was that praising someone for their individual work was against the law. The Catherians believed that if people thought they were special or important, they might try to change their caste level. This would cause chaos and war, just like in the old days. Jake sat back in his chair and thought about this. On Earth, telling someone they did good work was normal and kind. But on the Catherian homeworld, it was actually illegal. No wonder Zira reacted so strangely to his compliments. She had probably never heard words like that in her entire life. That afternoon, Jake had a meeting with representatives from 5 different planets. They were discussing trade agreements for rare minerals. The meeting was supposed to last 2 hours, but the aliens kept arguing about prices and shipping routes. Zira had prepared detailed reports about each planet's mineral resources and trade history. She had also made charts showing the best shipping paths through space. When the aliens could not agree on anything, Zira quietly suggested using her charts to find solutions. "If you look at this route," she said, pointing to her display, "it passes through neutral space and avoids the areas where pirates operate. The cost would be higher, but the safety would be better. Or if you prefer lower cost, this route takes longer but uses well-protected space lanes." She showed them 3 different options for each part of the agreement. By the end of the meeting, all 5 species had found solutions they could accept. What should have been a difficult negotiation became smooth and easy because of Zira's preparation and insights. After the other aliens left, Jake looked at Zira. "Your insights really helped everyone understand the options," he said. "I do not think that meeting would have gone well without your preparation." Once again, Zira went completely still. Her skin changed colors rapidly and she stared at Jake with wide eyes. But this time something else happened. She did not walk away immediately. Instead, she stood there for almost a minute just looking at him. "Why do you say these things?" she asked finally. Her voice was very quiet. Jake was surprised by the question. "Because they are true," he said. "You do good work. You help people solve problems. Why would I not say that?" Zira's skin turned the soft gold color again. "On my world, we do not speak of individual contributions. We do our assigned duties, nothing more." "But you do more than just your assigned duties," Jake said. "You think of creative solutions. You understand what different species need. You make complicated things simple. That is not just following orders. That is real skill." Zira looked down at her hands. Her skin was cycling through colors Jake had never seen before. "I do not understand why your words affect me this way," she said. "When you speak of my work, I feel different. Like something is waking up inside me." Jake felt bad for causing her distress. "I am sorry if my words make you uncomfortable. I do not mean to upset you." "I am not upset," Zira said quickly. "It is something else. Something I do not have words for." She looked at him again. "In our society, we are taught that individual worth comes only from our caste assignment. A green-level administrator like me has worth because of my position, not because of anything I do personally. But when you speak of my work, I feel as if I might have value beyond my caste." Jake nodded. "On Earth, we believe everyone has value because of who they are and what they contribute. Your caste level does not change the fact that you are intelligent and helpful and good at solving problems." Zira's breathing became faster again. "These are dangerous thoughts," she said. "If other Catherians heard us talking this way, there would be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Jake asked. "Re-education," Zira said. "They would change my memories to remove the dangerous ideas. Or they might lower my caste level and send me to work in the mines." Jake felt shocked. "Just for hearing compliments?" "Just for accepting them without reporting the violation," Zira said. Individual recognition is considered a threat to social stability. They stood in silence for a moment. Jake was beginning to understand how different their worlds were. On Earth, recognition and praise helped people feel good about themselves and work harder. But in Cytherian society, those same words were seen as dangerous weapons that could destroy their whole way of life. "I should go," Zira said finally. "But..." She paused and looked at him one more time. "Thank you for seeing something in me that I did not know was there." After she left, Jake sat alone in the meeting room, thinking about what she had said. He was starting to realize that his simple human habit of being kind and appreciative might be more powerful than anyone had imagined. And if Zira was right about the consequences, it might also be more dangerous than he had ever thought possible. Jake was reviewing reports in his office when he heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. He looked up to see 3 Cytherians walking toward the diplomatic section. These were not ordinary Cytherians like Zira. Their crystal skin was deep blue, which meant they held very high positions in their government. The one in front was tall even for a Cytherian, almost 8 feet high. His blue skin was so dark it was almost black. Jake had never seen a Cytherian with skin that color before. Behind him walked 2 others with lighter blue skin, but still much darker than Zira's green. Jake watched through his office window as they went to Zira's desk. The tall one spoke to her in their own language. Jake could not understand the words, but he could see that something was wrong. Zira's skin turned pale green, almost white. She stood up from her desk and followed the 3 high-ranking Cytherians out of the diplomatic section. 20 minutes later, Amy Chen came to Jake's office. Amy was the senior human representative at the station. She was in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes, but she looked worried today. "We need to talk," Amy said, closing the door behind her. "Sit down, Jake." Jake sat in his chair. "Is this about Zira? I saw some high-ranking Cytherians take her somewhere." Amy nodded. "It is about Zira, and it is about you. The Cytherian government has filed a formal complaint against both of you." "A complaint? For what?" Amy pulled out her data tablet and read from it. "They say you have been engaging in emotional manipulation of a Cytherian official. They claim you have been using unauthorized recognition to destabilize her psychological state." Jake felt confused and angry. "I was just being polite. I thanked her for good work. How is that manipulation?" "In their society it is," Amy said. "Jake, I know you did not mean any harm, but you have to understand that what seems normal to us can be very dangerous to them. The Cytherians have built their entire civilization on preventing exactly what you have been doing." "What I have been doing? What exactly have I been doing?" Amy sat down across from him. "You have been treating Zira like an individual person with value beyond her caste assignment. You have been recognizing her personal contributions and praising her individual skills. To us, that is just being a decent human being. To them, it is psychological warfare." Jake stood up and walked to the window. "Where is Zira now?" "She is being questioned by High Administrator Krolek Sanvorthak. He is one of the most powerful Cytherians in this sector of space. The charges against her are very serious." "What charges?" Amy read from her tablet again. "Accepting unauthorized recognition, failure to maintain caste-appropriate emotional distance, engaging in individual-focused thinking patterns. And the most serious one, failure to report a violation of social stability protocols." "What does that mean for her?" Amy's face grew sad. "If they find her guilty, she will undergo memory modification. They will remove all the experiences she had with you. Everything you said to her, everything she felt when you recognized her work will be erased from her mind. After that, they will demote her to a labor caste. She will spend the rest of her life doing simple physical work and will never be allowed to interact with other species again." Jake felt sick. "And it is all because I said nice things to her?" "It is because she accepted those nice things without reporting you immediately," Amy said. "In their system, she should have told her superiors the first time you complimented her work. The fact that she did not means they think she has been corrupted by human emotional concepts." Jake sat back down. "Can we do anything to help her?" Amy shook her head. "Not without causing a major diplomatic incident. If we interfere with their internal justice system, they could expel humanity from the galactic community. We are still new here, Jake. We cannot afford to make enemies of the most powerful species in the galaxy. So we just let them destroy her mind and ruin her life? I am sorry, Jake, I truly am. But sometimes being a diplomat means watching bad things happen and not being able to stop them. After Amy left, Jake sat alone in his office for a long time. He kept thinking about Zira and the way her eyes had looked when she talked about feeling like she had value beyond her caste. She had said it was like something was waking up inside her. Now they were going to put that something back to sleep forever. That evening, Jake was walking back to his quarters when someone called his name softly. He turned around and saw Zira standing in a side corridor. She looked different. Her usual neat appearance was messy. Her crystal skin was flickering between colors rapidly as if she could not control it. "Zira," Jake said, walking over to her. "Are you all right? I heard about what happened." "I should not be here," she said quietly. "I am supposed to stay in my quarters until the judgment tomorrow. But I had to speak with you. What did they ask you?" Zira looked around to make sure no one was watching. "They wanted to know every conversation we had. Every time you spoke words of recognition to me. They asked me to describe how those words made me feel." "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth," Zira said. "I told them that your words awakened something in me that I did not know existed. I told them that for the first time in my life I felt like I was more than just my caste assignment." Jake felt worried for her. "Zira telling them that will only make things worse for you." "I know," she said, "but I could not lie about it. These feelings you gave me are too important to deny." She looked at him with her large eyes. "Jake, I need you to understand something. In all my years of life, no one has ever spoken to me the way you have. No one has ever seen me as an individual with my own skills and thoughts. When you told me my work was good, when you said I was intelligent and helpful, you showed me a version of myself I never knew existed." Jake felt his heart breaking for her. "I am so sorry, Zira. I never meant for any of this to happen to you." "Do not be sorry," she said firmly. "What you gave me was a gift. Even if they take it away tomorrow, I will always know that it existed. I will know that for a few weeks I was seen as a person worth recognizing." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Zira spoke again. "There is something I need to tell you. The changes in me have not gone unnoticed by other Catherians on the station. Some of them have started asking questions about individual worth and personal value. Word is spreading about the human who speaks forbidden words and the administrator who receives them. Is that bad?" "It could be very bad," Zira said. "Or it could be the beginning of something important. I do not know which yet." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "This contains my personal observations about how recognition affects individual motivation and creativity. I wrote it during these past weeks, recording how your words change the way I think and work. If something happens to me tomorrow, I want someone to have this information." Jake took the chip. "Nothing is going to happen to you. There has to be a way to fix this." Zira's skin turned the soft gold color one last time. "Even if there was a way, I would not change what happened between us. You taught me that I have worth beyond my assignment. That knowledge is worth any price they make me pay." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Jake, your people possess something that could change the galaxy. The ability to see individual value in others is a power that could transform entire civilizations. But it is also dangerous to societies built on hierarchy and control. Be careful how you use this gift." After Zira left, Jake went to his quarters and sat on his bed, holding the data chip she had given him. He thought about what she had said. He thought about the way her skin had glowed when he complimented her work. He thought about how she had started making suggestions instead of just following orders. Jake realized that Amy was right about one thing. As a diplomat, sometimes you had to watch bad things happen. But Jake was also learning that sometimes, if you really cared about someone, you had to be willing to risk everything to do what was right. He looked at the data chip again. Tomorrow, Zira would face judgment for the crime of accepting recognition. Tomorrow, they would try to erase everything that made her feel like an individual person with value. Jake made a decision. He was not going to let that happen without a fight, even if it meant ending his career and humanity's place in galactic society. Some things were more important than diplomacy. Some things were worth fighting for, no matter what the cost. He spent the rest of the night planning what he would do at Zira's judgment ceremony. It was going to be the most important speech of his life, and probably the last one he would ever give as a galactic diplomat. The great assembly hall of the diplomatic station had never been so full. Hundreds of Catherians had come to watch Zira's judgment ceremony. This was not just about one administrator who had broken the rules. This was about protecting their entire way of life from dangerous human ideas. Jake stood at the back of the hall, wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. Amy Chen stood beside him, looking nervous. She had tried to talk him out of coming, but Jake had insisted. He carried in his pocket a formal diplomatic protocol request that he had filed just an hour before the ceremony began. At the front of the hall, High Administrator Krolek Sanvorthak sat on a raised platform. His dark blue skin was almost black and his eyes were cold as ice. Around him sat 12 other high-ranking Catherians, all with deep blue skin that showed their important positions. Zira stood in the center of the hall. Her hands were bound with energy restraints, and her green crystal skin looked pale and weak. She faced the judgment panel with her head held high, but Jake could see that she was scared. Zira Veltharos, Krolek Sanvorthak began, his voice echoing through the hall. You stand accused of accepting unauthorized recognition from an alien species. You are accused of failing to maintain proper emotional distance. Most seriously, you are accused of not reporting violations of our social stability laws. How do you answer these charges? Zira's voice was quiet but clear. I accept that I broke the laws of our society, but I do not accept that what I did was wrong. A murmur went through the crowd of Catherians. Many of them had never heard someone speak this way during a judgment ceremony. Explain yourself, Krolek Sanvorthak said coldly. Zira stood straighter. The human Jake Morrison treated me with respect and recognition. He saw value in my work that went beyond my caste assignment. His words helped me understand that I am capable of more than just following orders. I am capable of thinking, creating, and contributing in ways I never knew before. Those thoughts are exactly what make you dangerous, the High Administrator said. Individual recognition leads to individual ambition. Individual ambition leads to chaos and war. This is why our laws exist, but what if the laws are wrong? Zira asked. What if recognizing individual worth makes people work better, not worse? What if seeing people as individuals makes society stronger, not weaker? The crowd of Catherians became louder. Some of them looked angry, but others looked curious. Jake noticed that many of the lower caste Catherians with red and yellow skin were leaning forward, listening carefully to every word. Krolek Sanvorthak slammed his hand on the platform. Enough. These dangerous ideas prove that you have been completely corrupted by human emotional manipulation. The judgment of this panel is that you will undergo immediate memory modification to remove all traces of individual-focused thinking. After that, you will be reduced to labor caste and assigned to mining duties on Asteroid Station 7. Wait, Jake shouted from the back of the hall. I invoke Diplomatic Protocol 47 Alpha. I request the right to address this assembly on behalf of the accused. Amy grabbed his arm. Jake, do not do this. You will destroy everything. Jake gently pulled away from her. Some things are more important than everything. Krolek Sanvorthak looked surprised and angry. This is a Catherian internal matter. You have no right to interfere. Jake held up his data tablet. Diplomatic Protocol 47 Alpha allows any accredited representative to speak on behalf of an accused party when the charges involve interspecies communication. I filed the proper request 1 hour ago. The High Administrator checked with his advisors. After a few minutes, he looked back at Jake with hatred in his eyes. The protocol is valid. You may speak, but know that your words here today may end your species membership in the galactic community. Jake walked down the aisle toward the front of the hall. Every Catherian in the room watched him. Their crystal skin flickered with different colors as they wondered what the human would say. Jake stopped next to Zira and looked up at the judgment panel. Then he turned to face the crowd of hundreds of Catherians. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was strong and clear. Zira Veltharos, he said, speaking directly to her even though everyone was listening. In my time working with you, I have witnessed intelligence, dedication, creativity, and compassion that would be valued in any society that has the wisdom to recognize individual worth. The effect was immediate. Zira did not just freeze this time. Her crystal skin began to glow with colors that had not been seen in Catherian society for thousands of years. Gold and silver light poured from her skin, and her eyes became bright like stars. But more shocking than Zira's reaction was what happened to every other Catherian in the hall. Their skin began to change colors and glow just like hers. Some of them fell to their knees. Others stared at their own hands in wonder, as if seeing them for the first time. The whole hall filled with light as hundreds of Catherians experienced something they had never felt before. Jake continued speaking, his voice carrying over the sounds of amazement and confusion. You have shown me the best of what it means to bridge different worlds with understanding and skill. You have solved problems that others could not solve. You have helped people who needed help. You have contributed something valuable and unique to everything you touched. A Catherian with red skin near the front of the hall suddenly stood up. I have never been told that my work has value, she said in a shaky voice. No one has ever said that I contributed something unique. Another Catherian, this one with yellow skin, stood up too. I designed a new way to organize supply shipments last month. No one noticed, but it made everything work better. Does that mean I have worth beyond my caste? Soon Catherians all over the hall were standing and speaking. They were talking about their own ideas, their own contributions, their own individual worth. It was the first time in 10,000 years that such words had been spoken in a Catherian assembly. Krolek San Vorthak was furious. Silence, he shouted. This is exactly the chaos that individual recognition creates. Guards arrest the human for psychological warfare against the Catherian people, but when the guards tried to move toward Jake, something unprecedented happened. Lower caste Catherians throughout the hall stepped in front of them. Red-skinned and yellow-skinned. Catherians who had never dared to disobey an order from a higher caste were now protecting the human who had shown them their own worth. He is not our enemy, said a Catherian woman with orange skin. He showed us something beautiful about ourselves. Why should we not be allowed to feel valuable? Asked a young Catherian man with red skin. Why is it wrong to recognize good work? The hall erupted in discussion and argument. High caste Catherians were shouting orders, but lower caste Catherians were talking back for the first time in their lives. The carefully maintained social order was cracking apart in real time. Zira stepped forward, her skin still glowing with golden light. High Administrator, she said, her voice carrying across the hall. Look around you. These people are not becoming chaotic or violent. They are becoming hopeful. They are discovering that they have value as individuals. How is that dangerous? Because it threatens the stability that has kept our civilization peaceful for 10,000 years. Krolek San Vorthak replied. But what kind of peace is it, Zira asked, when people must hide their worth to maintain it? What kind of stability requires that no one ever feel valued for who they are? A middle-aged Catherian with green skin like Zira's stood up. I have supervised food services for 20 years, he said. I have ideas for making meals better and reducing waste. But I never spoke of them because they came from me personally, not from my caste duties. If the human is right, if individual contributions have value, then maybe I should share these ideas. More and more Catherians began sharing their own hidden thoughts and ideas. Scientists talked about research they wanted to try. Engineers described improvements they had thought of but never mentioned. Even some blue-skinned high-caste Catherians looked thoughtful, as if they were remembering parts of themselves they had forgotten long ago. Jake looked around the hall at the transformation taking place. He had not planned for this to happen. He had just wanted to save Zira from having her memory erased, but somehow his simple words of recognition had unlocked something in the Catherian people that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Krolek San Vorthak stood up from his platform. This ends now, he declared. The human will be arrested and expelled from our space. All Catherians who have been contaminated by this emotional manipulation will undergo re-education. Order will be restored. But as he spoke, Jake noticed something that gave him hope. Even some of the blue-skinned Catherians on the judgment panel were looking uncertain. Their skin was flickering with new colors, and they were watching the crowd with something that looked like wonder instead of fear. The revolution had begun, and Jake realized that nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months after the judgment ceremony, Jake stood in his new office overlooking the main plaza of Nexus Prime Station. Through his window, he could see something that would have been impossible before. Catherians of different caste levels working together, talking freely and sharing ideas. The transformation had not been easy or quick. After Jake's speech in the assembly hall, chaos had indeed followed. But it was not the destructive chaos that High Administrator Krolek San Vorthak had predicted. It was the chaos of people discovering they had voices, ideas, and value. The first change came within days of the ceremony. Catherian workers across the station began making suggestions for improving their jobs. A red caste maintenance worker named Glixmore Theron showed his supervisors a better way to clean the air recycling systems. A yellow caste food service worker called Nira Feldosin created a new meal plan that reduced waste by 30%. Even some green caste administrators started proposing new policies based on their own observations, rather than just following old rules. The Catherian High Command had tried to stop the changes. They sent more blue caste officials to restore order and discipline. But something unexpected happened. When these high-ranking Catherians saw how much better everything worked when people felt valued for their contributions, some of them began to change too. A knock on Jake's office door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Zira entered, but she looked very different from the nervous administrator he had first met. Her crystal skin glowed with a steady golden light that had become her normal color. She wore new clothes that showed her rank as Director of Individual Recognition Studies, a position that had been created just for her. "The latest reports from the Catherian homeworld," she said, placing a data tablet on his desk. "The changes are spreading faster than anyone expected." Jake picked up the tablet and read the information. Across Catherian space, the same thing that had happened on the station was happening on planets and ships. People were speaking up, sharing ideas, and working together in new ways. Productivity was increasing. Scientific discoveries were being made at twice the normal rate. Art and music were appearing for the first time in thousands of years. "What does the High Command think about all this?" Jake asked. Zira smiled, something she had learned to do from watching humans. "They are scared but also curious. The economic benefits are too big to ignore. When people feel valued for their work, they work much better. Some of the highest-ranking Catherians are quietly asking for human advisors to teach them about recognition and individual worth." She sat down across from his desk. "There is more news. 3 other species have sent official requests to Earth, asking for cultural exchange programs. They want to learn what they call the human art of seeing people." Jake was amazed. 3 species? The Borlians want to understand how recognition might help their mining operations. The Zephyrians think individual appreciation could improve their artistic society. And most surprising, the Vorthans believe that recognizing personal contributions could help them solve some old conflicts between their different tree communities. Jake laughed. "All this because I said you did good work." "It is more than that," Zira said seriously. "You showed an entire galaxy something they had forgotten or never known. You proved that seeing people as individuals with worth and value is not dangerous. It is powerful in the best way." She pulled out another data tablet. "I have something to show you. Remember the data chip I gave you before the ceremony? The one with my observations about recognition?" Jake nodded. He had given the chip to Zira after everything calmed down, and she had been working with it for months. "I have expanded those observations into a complete research study," Zira said. "It shows exactly how individual recognition affects motivation, creativity, and productivity across different species. The results are incredible." She activated the tablet's holographic display. Charts and graphs appeared in the air showing data from dozens of worlds. "Look at this. In every case where people started receiving recognition for their individual contributions, work efficiency increased by at least 40%. Creative innovations increased by over 100%. And most importantly, general happiness and life satisfaction increased by nearly 300%. Jake studied the data. "This is amazing, Zira. You have proven scientifically what humans have always known instinctively." "We have proven it together," Zira corrected him. "I could never have discovered this without your example. And the discoveries are leading to even more changes." She showed him another chart. 5 Catherian worlds have officially changed their laws to allow individual recognition. They are calling it the New Harmony Protocol. Instead of avoiding personal achievement, they are celebrating it. Instead of hiding individual worth, they are encouraging it. "What about Krolek's son Vorthek and the other traditionalists?" Zira's expression became sad. "Some of them are still fighting the changes. Krolek San Vorthak was removed from his position when his own staff started making suggestions for better administration. He now lives on a traditional colony world where the old ways are still followed. But even there, some young Catherians are starting to ask questions about individual worth." She brightened again. "But most of the leadership has accepted the new reality. They have seen that recognizing people as individuals makes everything work better, not worse. Some of them even admitted that the old system was maintained by fear, not wisdom." Jake walked over to his window again. In the plaza below, he could see Catherians of all caste levels sitting together, talking and sharing meals. He saw a group of different species working on a project together, with humans acting as advisors on team cooperation and individual recognition. Sometimes I cannot believe all this started with me trying to be polite, he said. Zira joined him at the window. It started with you seeing me as a person worth recognizing. That simple act changed my life, then my world, and now it is changing the galaxy. She pointed to a new building being constructed across the plaza. That will be the Galactic Institute for Individual Recognition. Species from across the galaxy will come here to learn about the value of seeing people as individuals. You have been asked to serve as the first director. Jake looked at her in surprise. Me? I am not qualified to run an institute. You are the most qualified person in the galaxy, Zira said. You understand something that most species forgot or never learned. You know how to see the worth in every individual, regardless of their background or assigned role. She handed him an official document. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to create this position for you. Even the species who were suspicious of humans at first now want to learn from your example. Jake read the document. It offered him the chance to teach other species about recognition, individual worth, and the power of seeing people for who they really are. It was more than he had ever dreamed of when he first arrived at the station as a nervous young diplomat. What about you? He asked. What will you do? Zira's skin glowed brighter. I will be your deputy director. Together we will help the galaxy understand that every person has value worth recognizing. We will teach them that seeing individual worth is not dangerous. It is the key to building better societies. She looked out at the plaza, where so many different species were working and living together. My people spent 10,000 years believing that individual recognition would destroy our civilization. But you showed us that the opposite is true. Recognizing the worth of each person makes civilization stronger, kinder, and more creative. Jake thought about his journey from that first nervous meeting with Zira to this moment. He had learned that the simple human habit of appreciating others could be revolutionary. He had discovered that treating people with kindness and recognition was not just nice. It was transformative. I accept the position, he said. But I want to make sure we do this right. We need to help other species find their own ways to recognize individual worth. We cannot just impose human methods on everyone. Zira nodded eagerly. That is exactly what makes you the right person for this job. You understand that recognition must be genuine and culturally appropriate. You know that the goal is not to make everyone like humans, but to help everyone discover the value in their own people. As they stood together looking out at the transformed station, Jake realized that his accidental revolution was really just beginning. The galaxy was full of species who had never experienced individual recognition. There were civilizations built on hierarchy and suppression, just like the Catherians had been. There were people across the stars who had never been told that their work mattered, that their ideas had value, or that they were worth appreciating. But now there was hope. Now there was proof that recognizing individual worth made everything better. And now there were teachers like Jake and Zira, who could help others discover the transformative power of seeing people for who they truly are. You know what the best part is? Jake said as they watched a group of young Catherians playing with children from other species in the plaza below. What? Zira asked. Those children will grow up in a galaxy where being recognized for their individual worth is normal. They will never know what it feels like to hide their value or suppress.